This chapter contains sensitive themes of sexual violence, physical assault, and abuse. So Jacob and his family are living safely in the land, but some time passes, and his daughter Dinah is now a young woman. She's marriageable age, and something horrific happens to her in the land of Canaan. It says she went out to visit or see the women of the land. When Shechem son of Hamor the Hivite, the ruler of that area, saw her, he took her and raped her. This theme of seeing and taking should sound familiar now. This was an evil act, and all the responsibility is on this man Shechem. Notice the author doesn't shy away from doing a full background check. Here's his name, his family, his position, and exactly what he did. When someone is raped or assaulted or abused, it is never the victim's fault. It is the abuser's fault. And we should agree with Scripture that evil needs to be exposed. Dinah must have told her story, and thankfully she was believed. Then it says, his heart was drawn to Dinah, daughter of Jacob. He loved the young woman and spoke tenderly to her. Of course, not love meaning devotedness to her best interest. He loved her the same way Isaac loved tasty food. What was Dinah's reaction to all this? I wish we knew. But abusers often resort to this kind of manipulative behavior. After hurting the victim, they'll act sweet and loving to convince the victim that everything's okay, that he really didn't mean to hurt her, and it will never happen again. And Shechem said to his father Hamor, "Get me this girl as my wife." Again, dismissing the seriousness of the attack against this woman who bears the image of God, he considers her a possession to be taken and kept. When Jacob heard that his daughter Dinah had been defiled, his sons were in the fields with his livestock, so he did nothing about it until they came home. He did nothing? How could you do nothing when your own daughter is raped? Well, maybe you can give Jacob the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was waiting for his sons so they could all go kill Shechem. But I think what the text is showing is that his blessing and stability had made him apathetic. He was safe in the land and he didn't want any more trouble. Then Shechem's father Hamor went out to talk with Jacob. It's Hamor who takes action, not Jacob. Meanwhile, Jacob's sons had come in from the fields as soon as they heard what had happened. So everyone's moving faster than Jacob. They were shocked and furious. Now, we've seen this word shocked or grieved before. It's the gutting that God himself felt when he saw his good world turn to violence in chapter 6. We've seen anger flare up in Cain and in Jacob. Outside the book of Genesis, there are times when God is described as angry. Cain was told to master his anger, like taming a wild animal. Why? Because these strong emotions are appropriate God-given reactions to evil and injustice, but how we use them makes a world of difference. Then the author explains why they're grieved and angry. Because Shechem had done an outrageous thing in Israel by sleeping with Jacob's daughter, a thing that should not be done. The narrator's insert here stands out to me. We've seen a lot of good and bad actions in the Genesis story, and we hardly ever see the narrator step in like this and say, "This is bad." Usually the stories cultivate wisdom slowly, and you kind of connect the dots by observing the characters and events. Well, for whatever reason, the Spirit prompted our writer to insert himself into the story and say, this was wrong for him to assault her. Just in case you didn't know, men don't have a right to women's bodies, not even powerful men. Men in the ancient world need to hear this. Men in today's world need to hear this. But Hamor said to them,
"My son Shechem has his heart set on your daughter. Please, give her to him as his wife. Intermarry with us. Give us your daughters, and take our daughters for yourselves. You can settle among us. The land is open to you. Live in it, trade in it, and acquire property in it."
Well, now we're really compounding the issue. He acts like the rape never happened. Shechem has charmed his family into thinking that he's just a boy in love. He just got carried away. Boys will be boys. So you know how we should solve this problem? We should set the bar really low. You guys should just assimilate with us and just accept the status quo without ever addressing the injustice. Then the perpetrator speaks up. "Let me find favor in your eyes, and I will give you whatever you ask. Make the price for the bride and the gift I am to bring as great as you like, and I'll pay whatever you ask me. Only give me the young woman as my wife. She's a commodity." And he'll throw all the money in the world at them to get them to shut up about the rape and act like nothing happened. Well, the brothers are tricksters, and they hatch a clever plan of revenge. Verse 13 says they replied deceitfully as they spoke to Shechem and his father Hamor. They say, "Sure, we'll assimilate under one condition. You have to become like us by circumcising all your males." Well, Hamor and Shechem agreed. Verse 19 says, "The young man who was the most honored of all his father's family," wow, that should tell you something, "lost no time in doing what they said." So all the males in the city were circumcised. 3 days later, while all of them were still in pain, two of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took their swords and attacked the unsuspecting city, killing every male. They put Hamor and his son Shechem to the sword and took Dinah from Shechem's house and left. Apparently, she was isolated there. That's another common behavior of abusers. They maintain control by restricting a victim's access to family, friends, or social media. Or he'll gatekeep the finances or the car and keep her from being an autonomous person who might threaten his illusion that she's his property and she needs him to survive. Well, Shechem gets what he deserves, but the brothers go way overboard. The sons of Jacob came upon the dead bodies and looted the city where their sister had been defiled. They seized their flocks and herds and donkeys and everything else of theirs in the city and out in the fields. They carried off their wealth and all their women and children, taking as plunder everything in the houses. Guys, I want justice too, but wow. When Abraham prayed over Sodom, he hoped that God would spare the righteous. The trigger-happy brothers don't have that kind of discernment. This is large-scale, unmeasured, unbridled, violent bloodlust. In their rage, they lost focus and took out innocent victims. In Genesis 49, we find that this disproportionate reaction cost them their inheritance. Well, now the dust is settled, and Jacob speaks up. His reaction tells us where his sympathies lie. "You have brought trouble on me by making me obnoxious to the Canaanites and Perizzites, the people living in this land. We are few in number, and if they join forces against me and attack me, I and my household will be destroyed." So that's why Jacob was passive in the face of brutality. He wanted to save himself. He won't stand up for his daughter because maybe in a hypothetical situation, other people who aren't involved in this situation might attack him. This very week that I'm typing this script, I've seen several news reports of churches whose pastors have committed immoral and even criminal sexual acts. And rather than complying with mandatory reporting laws, rather than exposing the evil like Scripture does, rather than helping and healing the victim like God does, these churches chose to hide the evil, to silence the victim, and to brush aside these monstrous acts and unleash hell in the name of God. But they replied, "Should he have treated our sister like a prostitute? Don't you get it, Jacob? Doing nothing enables abuse. She's our family. We protect her. Justice has to be done." Well, the brothers get the last word in this chapter, and the scene is going to change. But for many, many people around the world, the scene isn't changing. Sexual violence and its long-lasting consequences continue to affect their lives. Some surveys show that 1 in 3 women have experienced sexual assault in their lifetime. It's much lower in men, but it does happen. And Scripture doesn't shy away from this reality, and neither should we. But what principles can we draw out of this story? For one, we need to believe victims. Shechem was charming. He was honored in his family. He spoke tenderly. His own father was duped into thinking that Shechem really loved Dinah. Anyone can be an abuser, and we can't dismiss an accusation based solely on a person's charisma or our own opinion of them. Abusers are very, very adept at grooming everyone around them. But someone believed Dinah, and that led to her rescue, albeit a poorly handled one. Second, we need to stand up against evil by exposing and restraining it. I am sick of hearing about sex abuse scandals and churches covering up the reputation of a pastor or organization. The Holy Scriptures tell us how it is. This is Shechem, son of Hamor the Hivite, the ruler of that area. He saw her and took her and raped her. The story doesn't get watered down. No one asks what Dinah was wearing. It exposes Shechem's evil and condemns him. But we don't expose and restrain evil alone. God has given us the church to deal with some aspects of these situations, and He gives us the government to deal with other aspects. Abuse isn't only a moral issue. Most kinds make it a legal issue. Churches or concerned individuals are not qualified, trained, or legally authorized to conduct criminal investigations or confront perpetrators. but we can work with these organizations and comply with mandatory reporting laws to best help bring about God's justice. In any case, sitting around twiddling your thumbs like Jacob is not a godly response, nor is going on a violent killing rampage like Simeon and Levi. In my experience, churches are much more likely to err on the side of passivity. A third, related principle we can draw from the text is the importance of holding abusers responsible for their actions. Scripture explicitly condemns Shechem for his outrageous attack, and the text is sensitive to the way in which abusers operate. He smooth-talks her, he keeps her isolated in his home, he dismisses the severity of his attack, and he has others convinced that he's an honorable guy ready to get married. These manipulation tactics confuse victims and onlookers and make them question their own experiences. They might wonder, was I wrong? Should I have stayed home? Did I send the wrong signals? Maybe the attack was warranted by something I did or didn't do. But stories like this one show that it's the abuser who's in the wrong. And victims need to hear this as part of their healing journey. So why is this story in the Bible? What's the point? Couldn't we skip from Jacob and Esau's reconciliation right to the worship and blessing in chapter 35? But these tragic events often come out of nowhere and disrupt our peaceful rhythms, don't they? This story is here because Dinah matters. Justice matters. Your story matters. Dinah has a name and a story, and God put it right here in front of us because we too have choices to make. When our lives get interrupted and inconvenienced by people who have been abused, oppressed, attacked, will we image God by grieving with the victim and pursuing justice against the perpetrator? Or will we turn a blind eye?